So welcome everyone to this joint seminar between two technical committees at ACECC. I'm the chair of the ACECC Committee TC-26, which is the Climate Change, Water Resources, and Sustainable Development in the Asian region. So I chair that committee, and I'm also a director at the American Society of Civil Engineers. And co-host is Cris Liban, who's joining us online, as you can see, and he is the chair of Technical Committee 31, and that is the one for capacity building sustainable infrastructure. So we decided to join forces for this session today because we're going to focus on capacity building for water security, and thought that would be an excellent topic. So I'll just give you a little bit of an overview. This session is actually titled Capacity Building Towards Sustainable Water Security and Infrastructure Resiliency. And it's going to be a 2-hour seminar. And we're bringing together ACECC members, international experts, and engineering professionals to explore capacity building for sustainable water security and infrastructure resiliency. So this session will focus on the intersection of technology, education, funding, and financing, and engineering, science, and addressing water challenges as part of climate emergency response in the Asia-Pacific region. And participants will share research findings, case studies, and best practices contributing to progress towards the UN Sustainable Development Goals 6, 13, and 14. Achieving sustainable water security and resilient infrastructure requires more than responding to environmental challenges and extreme weather events. In Asia's diverse landscape, tracking progress is complex, and new tools, methods, and training are essential for engineers. The region faces critical concerns such as water scarcity, climate variability, and extreme weather conditions threatening infrastructure stability. Addressing these challenges demand integrated approach, incorporating climate adaptation, water resource management, and engineering innovation. So Cris is going to take over and give you a bit of information about our goals and kind of where we've come from and where we're heading with capacity building. So please feel free to take over, Cris. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, April. You can see my screen, or what can you see on your end?
Yes, we can.
If I do presentation mode, you see the presentation?
Hi, Chris. It's not the presentation mode, sorry. It's a dual mode, dual screen.
Okay. Let me do it again. Sorry. Share again. Apologize for this. I was on the online earlier and I can't do anything. So
We do have your presentation here. Oh, there we go. That's good.
That's good. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me here today. And and apologize. I usually go to these things and apologize for my speakers as well. Hopefully everyone's enjoying Myanmar. So as April had mentioned, this is a joint session between our two committees, the TC-26 and TC-31. And what I'm going to do today is essentially piggyback on what April had mentioned. We are looking at capacity building and on sustainable and resilient infrastructure with cases in the water area, and specifically focusing on water security. And what I'm going to do in the next few slides is work through the combination of what those two mean in terms of infrastructure as well as water security. So I'll focus a little bit on initially on what we have been doing here in TC-31, specifically on sustainable infrastructure. Again, the goal of TC-31 is to build technical capacity for engineers in ACECC countries. Our further goal is we enable infrastructure assessment for sustainability and resilience, and where we share these goals with TC-26 is that we also support UN SDGs through practical tools, training, and collaboration. Our approach is to strategically partner with ACECC members, and I did mention yesterday, if you were in the committee meetings, that we share this capacity building goal also with other global organizations, and we do this through webinars and sharing with resources. And these include, and I'll mention this in a little bit on what we've done in the last two ECMs. We've done this by working together with resources with other engineering associations, not only here in Asia, but also in South America, in North America, as well as in other parts of the world. Our focus is on also advancing, the capacity and capability of students, both in entry level as well as experienced practitioners. We've had two workshops already, at least on TC-31. Our first Manila workshop was almost a little bit over a year ago. The theme there was reframing the sustainable and resilient infrastructure capacity building. The topics included what we call the Envision framework. That's something. It's a standard. It's a sustainable infrastructure program where we have a checklist. Through that checklist, we're able to work through what a sustainable and resilient infrastructure means. In that same workshop, we also focused on youth and workforce development. We also focused on sustainability principles. You will hear from one of our speakers today, John Kasilag, who had spoken in Manila, and he will further, some of the work that we have done there in today's workshop. In Wellington, we focused on implementation challenges and strategies. Our focus there was real-world implementation hurdles and regional practices. The key lessons we had, that we had learned and are relevant to the 48 ECM include the following. Theoretical knowledge must be complemented with local implementation strategies. There's cross-sector collaboration that's needed to enhance sustainability efforts, and that youth and local practitioners bring innovation and critical insights. Specifically to today's workshop here in Myanmar, we are going to focus on practical discussions in water security and climate challenges. We also are going to highlight the need for context-specific frameworks, and you'll hear that from our speakers, specifically on the water sector. And then we're also focusing on the importance of integrating local perspectives with global standards. This joint workshop will, as April had mentioned, focus on sustainable water security and infrastructure resiliency. And we'll be looking at the intersection of technology, education, policy, and as well as touching a little bit on the finance. Our outcomes today will be looking at real-world case studies, and that will be towards the end of our presentations, and then insights into climate adaptation, resource management, and again, a refined capacity building framework, at the minimum, aligned with SDG 6, 13, and 14. The goal, at least for the TC-31 series, is that for us to be able to, in Manila, again, work through the baseline. What does the baseline look like, in terms of capacity building? In Wellington, what we looked at in there are the challenges of implementing capacity building framework. Today, we're going to look at, what does an ideal framework look like, and that's with our speaker, Mr. John Kasilag. We'll also be looking at how inputs from the community are going to be important, in terms of developing the capacity building. That's through Dr. Marqueza Reyes. We're going to explore some case studies on these frameworks and principles, and we're going to look at that through our speakers from Engineer Robin, from and then the rest of our speakers, one from India, and then another speaker from locally from Professor Mini. Our next steps, in the next few years after that, we're going to synthesize the findings and document lessons from Myanmar to shape the future technical guidance. We're going to conceptualize a guidebook that include practical capacity building reference for Asia Pacific engineers. And what we're going to do there is that also to expand partnerships, engage more institutions from regional webinars and workshops. And then we're planning to participate in ECM 49 in Jeju, South Korea, towards the end of this calendar year. And then finally, we're consolidating all of our efforts in the last year into a website resource hub that will also include the workshop outputs and tools that will be accessible online. So with that introduction, I hope you enjoy our workshop today, and I turn it over back to April, and we'll be back on soon towards the end of this conversation, for discussions and any more questions on our workshop. Thank you so much again, and I hope you enjoy our workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Cris. That's a fantastic introduction and giving us a good idea of where we've been and where we're headed. And I'd like to introduce Mr. John Kasilag. And please tell us a little bit about yourself, and the floor is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, April, and thank you, Cris. Thank you also to ACECC for having me this afternoon. My name is John Kasilag, and I'm one of the founding principals of AMH Philippines Incorporated. I'm in the consulting sector, and I'm part of an academe-linked Filipino engineering consulting company based in the Philippines. I've had the privilege also to reach a milestone as I celebrate 30 years as a Filipino engineer this month. I also had the chance and privilege to teach for about 18 years with the University Institute of Civil Engineering, handling courses on planning and construction. So I'm here on the invite of Cris to pick up from the materials that we had developed for the 46th ECM held in Manila last February 2024. During this 46th ECM, TC-31 gave a perspective on some of the development needs insofar as sustainability in the consulting sector is concerned, particularly engineering. We identified 4 core challenges that our sector face in advocating for sustainability in our industry. These are the challenge of the standard, the challenge of process ownership, the challenge of first cost, and the challenge of technology adaptation. We said that in the challenge of the standard, we noted the low rate of awareness on sustainability frameworks, despite a decade or so of existence in the Philippines. A seeming bias for building systems, and the need for continuing integration of major engineering codes, the environmental laws, and sustainability frameworks. We even ran a short survey of about 150 people, and to just validate what we thought was the extent of appreciation of the current standards in the Philippines. We also talked about the challenge of process ownership, which covered the difficulty of having different parties represented during each stage of a project, and what might end up to be conflicting interests, and the need to connect both the processes and those interests. Third, we took up the challenge of the first cost, which spoke about the need to look beyond the capital expenditure aspect of a project and have a more lasting or life cycle perspective, and having a healthy cost-benefit view for both users and our environment. And then fourth, we spoke about the challenge of tech adaptation, which mentioned the need for a lot of will, but also understanding that cost and resources is a real roadblock for many players in the consulting sector, as technology is a cost that is difficult to embed in our projects, even for construction jobs which are substantially bigger in scale. Between the 46th ECM and today, I also had the privilege to bring parts of this presentation to the Sustainability Forum, which which was hosted by the World Building Expo held in the Philippines just a few weeks ago. And this forum led me to a fifth challenge, which Cris actually mentioned earlier. And this is the lack of purposive collaboration amongst the crucial players in the sustainability effort. Okay, let me see if I can get this back on track. So for today's presentation, Cris asked us to try to answer the question, how should sustainability look in the front lines, and what capacity building frameworks should we pursue? And we thought that we could look back at the questions, issues, and challenges we identified last year, as summarized here, and based on another year's worth of professional exchanges, a bit more project experience, and a little bit more common sense, we'd like to offer the following. First, that sustainability in the front line should involve the harmonization and improved access to the standards. And this means that we should push for greater awareness, not only that the standards are present, but also where they are different. If you look at the quick list of logos on the screen, we have 3 of those that are actually being looked at in the Philippine setting, and another 3 that are used elsewhere in the world. We acknowledge that countries should be given a chance to review and adopt parts of a variety of frameworks that are most applicable to their context, but that appreciation of the standards and frameworks should also have a deeper reach into sectors who will have a chance to influence industry and public policy direction. Which is why we're advocating for the inclusion of this kind of education and information in AEC education, in our universities, in corporate mentoring programs, to enable our future consulting architects and engineers, as well as contractors, to benefit from such knowledge. We also recognize that putting together and mobilizing these standards, the development of a critical mass of sustainability professionals require resources. We were just sharing with April and even with Mac that it's not cheap to be credentialed. When we talk about democratization in this sense, it means that we should aim to support countries, groups that do not have as much resource, so that they can also develop their capacity in sustainability planning. It's important that we look at not only at the information, but the development of local professionals who will eventually influence planning, design, and construction. Cris mentioned that ASCE has looked at how Envision, the US framework for sustainability, has been looking to support developing economies like the Philippines so that more professionals can be credentialed as SPs or sustainability professionals. And given the current issue of affordability, this is something that we welcome pretty much. Now, to also address the issues surrounding process ownership and cross-collaboration, we also thought it is important to advocate for greater collaboration of parties across the project life cycle. And perhaps it's slightly easier in the public sector, where the ownership of processes from planning to design to construction to maintenance is better defined. Perhaps, for example, our friends from JICA would fund a project, and the design process is completed and managed by the Department of Public Works. who will basically partner with the private design professionals and contractors. And the facility is either turned over to the local government units or perhaps run by DPWH itself. But infra supported by the private sector, whether in the built environment or in various transport or utility infrastructure like water, may be a bit more complicated. What we've seen is that entities tend to want to operate and maintain a parts of the project that are not yet easy to identify. In the Philippine experience, new companies are usually formed to manage these types of infrastructure. And the approach to ensuring the sustainability objectives are maintained are often not defined so early in the game. So the more that we can equip people to be part of the process, the better chance sustainability would have to succeed. Collaboration also means that we need to strengthen our ties with our counterparts in this advocacy, especially with the architecture sector. And us in the engineering field can push the sustainability agenda with better cross-sectoral engagement. In the AEC, in the Philippines, sustainability tends to be pushed more by our friends from the architecture sector. But if you look at the local frameworks, for example, Verde, supported by the Philippine Green Building Council, of the 45 credits listed under the standard, more than 20 are actually related directly to engineering. And we are asked to take some secondary responsibility for several more. In any case, we think that it's very important to find ways to fuel discussions across sectors, as clearly sustainability is more than one party's business. Also in the front lines, we want to talk about sharing costs and rewards of sustainability. And we want to propose two main approaches. First, that we improve our competence in life cycle costing and life cycle analysis, and this should be advocated to be the norm. As engineers, should move to upskill in economics, asset valuation, maintenance cost, depreciation, and similar cost value related elements in order to define the real cost and value of investing, constructing, maintaining, and eventually decommissioning infrastructure. There's a good friend of mine who's a local geotechnical engineering expert, got schooled in Tokyo University, and became one of the Philippine experts in soil. But he also built a lot of competence in management and entrepreneurship. And he once joked that we engineers, as we mature, should also be careful not to be too in love with the engineering. And I think that what he meant was that our engineering should always find its way to champion the greater good. Second, we wonder if it's possible to push towards greater incentives so that sustainability becomes a bit more attractive. In public infrastructure, this might mean determining the project's economic value with a very good model and also determine its benefits over its design life, and then finding some ways to convert these values, turning them over to the department or local government unit or even the hosting private sector unit that will be maintaining the infrastructure. We're thinking perhaps contractors' permit fees can be reduced or tax breaks can be offered, benefits of which can be extended even to the consultants who advocate and design the projects with sustainability in mind. We think it's very important that the private sector projects might be a bigger challenge, but we want to push these benefits down the line nonetheless. Not just with making the initial investment, of course, that's still the biggest cost as CapEx, but we understand that sustainability benefits tend to be realized over an extended period. Although maybe policy, process, and technology improvements would allow the waiting time for these benefits to be a little shorter. Last and not the least, we want to posit that technology should continue to be embraced and it should continue to be mobilized. In the 46th ECM, we mentioned that 3D-based software has clearly demonstrated the ability to improve the delivery of consulting work, reducing wastage by its ability to plot exact positions of construction elements, and guiding the construction effort well. But AEC technology has already jumped far beyond the 3D. Modeling time in 4D, cost modeling in 5D, and then sustainability in 6D. We're even now in 10D. But unfortunately, in my country, in the Philippines, and perhaps many countries in Asia, the consulting and construction sectors have yet to take concrete steps to move more firmly in this direction. Maybe this is due to lack of support of government in transition. And I remember more than 10 years ago, Singapore had been supporting local companies transitioning to the BIM by offering some kind of a subsidy so that they can deliver their projects before they are sent over for permitting. Or clients, or we deal with the issue of clients wanting urgent returns on investment, which is understandable. Hence the concern on shared costs and rewards, which unfortunately disincentivizes those investing in the tech. But we also do think that sustainability can and should also go beyond the BIM platform. We already know that artificial intelligence, machine learning, and a host of tools should be in our horizon very urgently, as these are available across industry today. I was listening to a presentation of the Billion Bricks project set up in 2013 by architect Prasoon Kumar and venture capitalist Anurag Srivastava to put up net zero homes which were energy efficient, self-sustained, and more importantly, affordable. Prasoon, in his demo during the World Bex in Manila, demonstrated that in a matter of minutes, they had the ability working with BIM and machine learning and AI to determine the optimal setup of their homes within a predetermined lot boundary. They can calculate the time to build, calculate the carbon footprint, and determine all of the technical requirements, including the cost of the entire job. We envision a time when technology can be embraced and its benefits realized to push the sustainability agenda. So where are we at? In the 46 ECM, we identify some of the pressing issues in the development of sustainable infra that we have shown. We have them in the slide. And we think that as we move now to, in this presentation in the 48th ECM, TC-31 would like to do the following. Well, first, we want to push for harmonization and improve multi-level sustainability education and aim to build a critical mass, especially of young professionals who will have long years of practice ahead. Second, we want to advocate for LCA as a norm, as a standard, and push for greater cross-sector collaboration, especially between the engineers and the architects. Third, we hope that we can innovate a broad range of incentives across the life of an infrastructure project. And fourth, we hope that we can plan and implement a practical technology adaptation map for sustainable infrastructure. In conclusion, the consulting engineering sector in Manila, and I'm pretty sure many parts of Asia, has tremendous but still untapped potential to contribute to the sustainability agenda. The talent pool is tremendous and surely not lacking in capacity to generate and process information so that sustainability initiatives are data-driven. But we must also upskill in critical areas like economics, financial modeling, and the balancing of stakeholder interest. We believe that the work ahead is tremendous, but it is worth pursuing. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, John. That was very interesting. We'll hold questions until the very end to make sure that all of our presenters have time. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Marqueza Reyes, and she's going to talk about community inputs into frameworks. And please spend a little time introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, April. Mingalaba, good afternoon. I'm very happy to be here, and I thank our organizers, April and Dr. Cris Liban, for inviting me here. So, and My topic for this afternoon is the role of policy in democratizing urban resilience programs. So there's a big word in that title, and I'm going to break that down, what it means democratizing urban resilience programs in the presentation. But at the moment, let me just say that I will talk about policies in two sectors, in resilient and sustainable housing, and also in resilient and sustainable evacuation centers. So I will talk about two cases or two sets of policies in the Philippines and how these policies related to these two sectors actually can democratize these urban resilience programs, meaning how, at this point, I will just say how to engage the stakeholders in the process of sustainable and resilient urban development. So I am basically, I started my career in development work. I'm a licensed environmental planner in the Philippines. So I started working with local governments, conducting land use planning, urban planning. So I'm an urban planner. And then got into disaster risk management in the middle of my career because I realized that many of our cities are actually um, disaster prone or hazard prone, exposed to different types of hazards, but we were not integrating disaster risk management into our plans. That's why I got into disaster risk reduction and management, as well as in climate change adaptation. And so currently, I'm the technical lead for Expertise France. Expertise France is the technical arm of the French government, a part of the French Development Agency, working in the Philippines in different aspects, such as disasters reduction and circular economy. So I lead that particular project in the Philippines. And at the same time, I also teach at the Asian Institute of Management in the Executive Masters in Disaster Risk and Crisis Management. Okay, so I'm going to start my, oh, where's the clicker? Ah, here, okay, thank you. Great. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm looking at urban resilience programs and how policies actually engage stakeholders into this urban resilience programs. And firstly, how stakeholders, different groups of stakeholders are engaged. No? But let me preface my presentation with a context of urbanization because I'm an urban planner and this is, I like to talk about urbanization and how cities actually can be both boon and bane in the development of a country. So we all know, because we live in Asia, most of us, I think, live in Asia, and urbanization is actually a defining trend, defining mega trend in Asia and, of course, in the Philippines. So globally, we have 54%, or globally, the global urban population, 54% or 2.2 billion live in Asia. No, so we all know that the planet is urban, right? We live in an urban planet, and much of this population, urban population, live in our region. And in the Philippines, this is mirrored. This kind of trend is mirrored. In fact, um, the level of urbanization in the Philippines is 54%, meaning more people now prefer to live in cities, in urban areas. Okay, so that means back in 2020, this was a census in 2020, 59 million out of 109 million were already living, working, recreating, and all this, things that we do in cities and urban areas. So we live in, skyscrapers and different types of housing accommodations. But some more facts and figures about urbanization. But just want to point out that spatially, across the Philippines, this urbanization is uneven. So most of this urbanization happens actually in metropolitan areas and secondary cities. But you see that, this process of urbanization, urban development actually has led to both economic growth and development, but also challenges in the life of many Filipinos living in this urban area. So you can see on the second photo the juxtaposition of those living in skyscrapers against living in shanty towns or slums, and this is actually replicated in many cities across our region. So what are these challenges of rapid urban development in the Philippines? And I have been living in a city all my life. I was born in a city and born and raised, and still living in Metro Manila, in Quezon City. So I'm very familiar with this process, and I see all of these challenges every day. Every day when I go out of my house, I see that there's a lot of people who are homeless. And in fact, we have a housing backlog of 6.5 million. And not just a backlog, but there's inadequate, affordable, and safe housing. And I'm showing here the ideal. This is not what we have, definitely, but I want to show that this is what we aspire for, that we want to have cities that are, uh, you know, safe, um, resilient, and with affordable housing that are also sustainable. So with the growing informal settlements or slums in our cities, that's one big challenge because of the inadequate basic services. And in cities like Metro Manila, there's inadequate investment in urban infrastructure. We have a lot of aging legacy infrastructure, meaning many of our infrastructure were built before the codes were even developed. So I call this legacy infrastructure, and they're still there. And some of them are being retrofitted. But still, there's a lot of concern about this aging infrastructure. And aside from the housing and the investment, inadequate investments in infrastructure, there's also the environmental impacts or environmental challenges such as increasing pollution and environmental degradation because of this rapid urban development. And of course, the worsening economic and social inequalities happening in these cities, which lead to social inclusion. And so I'd like to point out that what we're striving for are, to become a green city and an inclusive city with less of this social inequalities. Okay. So what do we do with all these challenges? We look at opportunities and solutions, how to enhance urban resilience in the Philippines. We all know, as mentioned, that cities may be a bane, right, with all these challenges of environmental degradation and inequalities and aging infrastructure, but at the same time, they are centers of job creation, right? So a lot of people move to the cities because of this. They are centers of services, innovation, productivity, cultural activities, education, etc. And that's why maybe I'd like to add to the SDGs mentioned earlier. The SDG 11 actually says that we have to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. So with this idea, this is only possible with strong institutions, strong governance institutions, social inclusion, resilience, and environmental sustainability. And so the government, such as the Philippine government, must develop and implement public policies to shape an urban future that is exactly what it says by SDG 11. Safe, resilient, inclusive, and sustainable. So now I'm going to focus on two sets of urban resilience policies in the Philippines related to first, housing, so resilient and sustainable housing. Second, resilient and sustainable evacuation centers. So which, aside from the global framework of SDGs, these are also enshrined in the new urban agenda. So these are the global frameworks that we are actually following and implementing in the Philippines. But let's look at how the Philippine government actually translates this international frameworks into national policy and legal frameworks. So, but before I go into this, policy review, basically, which this policy review, I have conducted this 2 years ago together with a team as a consulting project. And so we looked into all these policies related to housing. But my job is to explain how do these policies democratize urban resilience programs. Meaning, when we say democratize, how do these policies actually make the housing programs, this urban resilience housing, resilient housing programs more inclusive? Do these policies make this housing programs more inclusive, more transparent? Do they provide space for participation by the community? Is there participatory planning and decision-making processes that provide space for different stakeholders to be engaged? And is there equitable access to resources, particularly to funding and financing? Okay, so basically these are the ingredients of participatory governance, okay, and which are essential for cities and urban areas that are at greater risk to disasters and climate change. Because, well, we all know that cities, we saw what happened in the Mandalay earthquake, because cities are, where people congregate. There's concentration of people, concentration of assets in a very confined area, very small areas. Um, and then there's the socioeconomic inequalities. There's a big gap between the rich and the poor. A lot of people living in dilapidated dwellings that are that show, that have physical vulnerabilities to different hazards. So all this, all these ingredients of democratization, like making sure that the stakeholders can be heard, can be part of the planning, even designing and decision making are very important in order for these cities and urban areas, urban communities, to be more resilient and sustainable. So, and we in making or democratizing resilience programs, for example, we can employ a range of different methodologies. You can have a survey, for example. We did a survey right there, the profile of respondents. We have this not necessarily with a not probabilistic, but a sample of respondents that we selected from different local governments. And then we can have stakeholder consultations, for example, the second photo. And then the third photo, we can have focus group discussions. So different methodologies for making this urban resilience programs actually more inclusive and participatory. Okay, now we look at the different policies in the housing sector. So you can see there's a list. These are just the main policies related to housing, resilient and sustainable housing. And they all target underprivileged and homeless citizens, right? To have access to safe, resilient, affordable, and sustainable housing. Yes, that's true. So to a certain degree, they're very inclusive, okay? And of course, aside from this Republic Acts or different laws like Urban Development and Housing Act, the Comprehensive Integrated Shelter Finance Act, which happened in the past 2 decades, more or less, no? Before that, there were not really a lot of policies related to housing, especially resilient housing or sustainable housing. So it happened only in the decade or so, right? In the past decade or so. And then, of course, we have the National Building Code and its referral codes mentioned earlier, like the Philippine Green Building Code and the Structural Code. But these are all very engineering, very engineering, okay? Okay, so there are also enabling plans and frameworks, and I list some of them. There's a lot. Okay, there's a lot. So most important are the National Urban Development Housing Framework, the Resilient and Green Human Settlements Framework, the Post-Disaster Shelter Recovery Policy Framework. Okay, which all talk about housing that should be resilient against disasters and climate change, that should be sustainable, etc. And of course, as mentioned, democratizing these urban resilience programs, at least resilient and sustainable housing programs, there should be equitable access to funding, to financial resources. And so many of these laws refer to government financing institutions and funding sources as the one that you see here below. So there are institutions that provide loans, for example. No, for example, this one, social institutions and development banks, they provide loans after disaster, only after disaster. Before, you cannot get a loan. If you want to strengthen your house before a disaster, you cannot. It has to be damaged first, and then you can apply for a loan. Okay, and this is the focus of this post-disaster shelter recovery policy framework. But these financing institutions actually focus on new construction, new housing construction. Okay, all right. So that's well and good, right? So many policies, right? We have plans, frameworks. That's nice, okay? But as I always say, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Are these actually implemented? These resilient and sustainable housing policies implemented, and are they democratizing? Are they democratized because of these policies? Let's look at one example. One example is the Community Mortgage Program, or the CMP, of the Social Housing Finance Corporation, so which is one of the financing institutions. This is a very good example of a urban resilience program, housing program, that is people-led. It's actually people-led, and it's based on community development, community ownership, the concept of community ownership. But they have to be first locally organized into an association before they can apply for this community mortgage program. So the idea is that the residents of a depressed area, of a slum, for example, or they can own the lots that they occupy, so in situ development of their own community, or they can apply for a relocation, which is outside the city. Okay, so this is a very good example of these policies that are espousing resilient and sustainable housing, but at the same time, they democratize the access to resources. They are inclusive. They have participatory planning processes, okay, to a certain degree. Okay, so at the end of it, we're talking about all these policies, right? But all these policies, they do promote urban resilience and sustainability to some extent, but has a lot of room for improvement and innovation. For example, there's the idea of a bamboo engineered housing, which has not yet materialized. Maybe some, like very small scale, but not in terms of public housing. No? Green roofs, renewable energy, the use of solar power. There's a law now, and there's not a law, but there's a bill in the Senate, mandating the use of solar power for public housing, for social housing, and rainwater harvesting. So these are just some examples of innovation that can further democratize the sustainable and resilient housing program. Again, these policies promote participatory governance and inclusivity to a limited degree. So there's still need for bigger space and enhanced agency, meaning there should be capacity building for these vulnerable groups to be able to be part of the planning and decision-making processes, okay? And there's also a need to decentralize from the national to the local, okay? So for local governments to be empowered with more technical resources and more access to funding. And another example is that for participatory governance to be, for people to be part of the community design, for people to or community to take part in the designing of their settlement, of their housing community that suit their cultural, social, and economic needs. So for this particular sector, I would like to say that, based on our policy review, the Philippines has made significant strides in developing resilient and sustainable housing policies, especially for new construction. Okay? But scaling up and ensuring sustainability remain key challenges. Second thought is that democratized policies for disaster resilient housing recovery remains a gap. What does it mean? For housing after disaster, the decision and planning are still top down. So it's still decisions and planning from the top, and the communities are not part of are not part of the planning and designing process after a disaster. They just go and wherever they are relocated, and that's why an example of this sort of unsuccessful this post-disaster resilient housing recovery is what happened after Typhoon Haiyan. Maybe you've heard about this back in 2013. So there are many shelter recovery programs after Typhoon Haiyan that are still not, or they were used for a short while, but then the residents decided to leave, or they were not used at all. So they remain unoccupied. Although a lot of financing is actually available for post-disaster resilient housing recovery. So that is kind of paradoxical, how the government actually provides funding for post-disaster housing. And then I mentioned this earlier, that there is a gap in terms of policies of preventive house strengthening. So the existing building stock is not a priority of the government in terms of funding. So private housing remains substandard because there's no emphasis on preventive house strengthening. So that remains a gap. Okay, so that's the housing sector. Let me go now to the evacuation center. So this is my current engagement now as part of the expertise fronts, disaster risk reduction technical assistance project to the government of the Philippines. So particularly because there's a recently enacted law, which is called Ligtas Pinoy Centers Act. Literally, translation in English is Safe Filipino Centers. So centers for safe Filipinos, especially during and after a disaster. Okay. So this mandates the establishment of safe, fully equipped evacuation centers in every city and municipality in the Philippines. That's a lot. That's 1,715. And each LGU or local government unit can must have at least one evacuation center. So one local government or one city or municipality can actually have more than one evacuation center. And this is something that's perhaps now a necessity because of the increasing impacts of climate change and natural hazards. Again, how do you make all these evacuation centers sustainable and resilient? And this is the purpose of this Republic Act or this law. And for evacuation centers, so aside from this law, which was enacted only in December last year, there's a host of laws, legal and policy frameworks related to evacuation centers. So we don't lack policies when it comes to, again, to before it's housing, resilient sustainable housing, but now we have this, resilient sustainable evacuation centers. But how are this, standard evacuation centers actually um, uh, democratized? Like, how can the people, stakeholders, the end users of evacuation centers can actually be part of creating the standards for this evacuation centers? So, but before I go into that, we noticed, so this project that I'm leading, we noticed that in spite of all these policies, there are gaps in the policies. One is that there are no detailed standards in spite of all those policies. No detailed standards for permanent evacuation centers. So you can see here that in the picture, this is an example of a basketball court that has been turned into an evacuation center. So normally in the Philippines, you have a basketball court, and then they build certain structures around the basketball court to become an evacuation center in times of disasters. But then at the same time, they can be used for other purposes during normal times. Okay? So there is a lack of standards for making this, this kind of evacuation centers and retrofitting existing facilities. Like if there's already an evacuation center, how can this be made more resilient and sustainable? And then there's a need to further enhance resilience and sustainability standards. And then these standards also need to be GEDC, gender equality, disability, and social inclusion responsive. So that's what it means. And E-rate responsive, emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases responsive because of the pandemic that we went through. So these are the gaps. So now this is what we are working on. So I'm leading a team together with the DILG. This is the Department of Interior and Local Government, which is the government agency that's implementing the technical assistance to develop the evacuation center standards and designs to address these gaps. So I won't go into the details of what the standards are, but just to say that these standards actually would need to be, would actually provide space for for the stakeholders, especially the vulnerable groups who need to be evacuated, right? To be part of the planning, design, and decision-making processes, especially because we are looking at, of course, we have location standards, we have general structure and design standards, but if you look at space and design requirements, you will see that we are looking at, the usual space requirements, but here, for example, gender-responsive toilets and bathing areas, so different toilets for women, men, and people with disabilities. And then, of course, we're looking at space planning that would include breastfeeding rooms, women-friendly space, child-friendly space, prayer room, no, because there are different religious denominations in the Philippines. And a conjugal room. This conjugal room is kind of controversial. Storage, laundry, and others, and also pets and livestock areas. So with this kind of planning process that we're looking at the different standards, we need to have the stakeholders, the end users of evacuation centers, to be part of the planning and designing process. And this is what we are currently doing. So so we are actually now, we have conducted site visits to different local governments and conducted focus group discussions with different end users and professional associations like the United Architects of the Philippines. We're consulting 44 plus agencies, so a lot of consultation, which are members of the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council. And we are currently organizing stakeholder consultations in different regions of the Philippines. So it's a lot of work democratizing this kind of, creating these standards require a lot of, well, not just work, but also resources so that we can get the inputs and provide the space for people to be part of the design and planning process. So at the end of it, we are looking at for the council, the NDRMC, to issue a supplementary policy on guidelines and minimum standards on the design of permanent evacuation centers by June 2025. Okay, and so I leave this is my last slide. And just to say that engaging stakeholders in standardizing resilient and sustainable evacuation centers, this democratizing urban resilience programs require stakeholder mapping. So we need to identify who your stakeholders are and then define an engagement process for each group of stakeholders in the short and the long term. And then the stakeholder engagement and management process should be done in a sustained way. It's not just in the beginning, but also like throughout the planning process, like what John mentioned, from the laws to the planning to the decommissioning should be there. The stakeholders should be part of it in order to strengthen agency, community agency and cohesion, address underlying vulnerabilities to disasters and climate change for these communities to be able to adapt and reduce their vulnerabilities and build future resilience. So I think that's where I am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Reyes. That's very interesting. Yeah, there's so much that we need to learn about that. And certainly after any disaster, having those types of evacuation facilities need to be thinking about how sustainable they are. So thank you for that. I'd like to introduce our next speaker who will be speaking online virtually. And it's Engineer Robinson Salenga, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about water scarcity and security from a practitioner's viewpoint. So Robin, please take over. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon in Myanmar. Can you hear me? April? Is it loud here?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Again, good evening in Manila right now because we're already at 6:42 p.m. So, again, I'm here representing TC-26 together with Miss April and Miss Dr. HB. We call it, we are the common and the normal speakers for the TC-26. And we are happy that we are collaborated with the TC-31, which is also a Filipino. So Filipinos are dominating right now in the sessions. The same thing in the SICAR, incoming SICAR. Hope to see you everyone in SICAR. So okay, the topic that I'm going to discuss right now is basically correlated with the TC-26. So this is more on the TC-31 aspect. TC-26 aspect, but it's in conjunction with TC-31 as discussed previously. This is a joint session. So as you all know, I'm Engineer Robin Salenga. My full name is Robinson Salenga. So don't mind all the extension of my names. That's the fruit of the labor of my 25 years being a civil engineer. Previously, I was with one of the concessionaire of a water utility and a concessionaire of Metro Manila, which is Maynilad. But right now, I am the head of project management and construction group of TMTC Management Consultancy, which is a different environment, different infrastructures. And together with me, it's basically the one who prepared this slide is the acting deputy administrator and the concurrent department manager of the engineering technical operation group of the Metropolitan Water Works and Sewerage System, which is basically the regulatory body of water utility in the Philippines. Okay, so as an introduction, well, as you can see, this is the typical map of the Philippines, which basically focuses on the areas in Metro Manila as per my topic, my title on focusing on the water resiliency capacity building, which is focused on Metro Manila. Right now, we have a 17 million population. Though in that population, there are so many issues and concerns. Basically, it's more on the water security programs, particularly on the increasing climate change impact, urbanization, as discussed previously by the two Filipino previous speakers, the rapid population growth, and basically the water scarcity. So we at TC-26 is basically more on the water resiliency and water related topics. Okay. From the 17 million population, actually this is the blown up map of Metro Manila. So the Metro Manila has two concessions or two water utility companies that we're managing. Okay. One is my previous employer, which is Maynilad, who has 9.68 million customers, and the other one is Manila Water. Though they are a separate company, totally different company, but they are basically managing the distribution, the operation, and the wastewater, both water and wastewater management of Metro Manila. So Manila Water is 7.6 has 7.6 customers. As you can see on this representation, Manila Water has a larger area. Why? Maynilad has a larger area, mainly on the residential areas. Okay. Okay. Both the concessionaires, Maynilad and Manila Water, has been under the regulatory and controlled by Metropolitan Waterworks and Sewerage Systems, which basically the mandate is to ensure the uninterrupted adequate water supply and equitable distribution of safe potable water at an affordable price. As you all know, even though water is free, there is still a cost of water, mainly because of the potability and the compliance with we had here in the Philippines, we call it the Philippine National Standard of Drinking Waters, or the PNSW. Okay. And same thing, we need to contribute to public health and safety through the maintenance and improvement of urban environment and securing the sanitary environment and secure environmental conservation to preserve the quality of human life, which is basically part of the SGD 6. Okay. There are so many resiliency frameworks in Metro Manila. First, as this is under the MWSS. Okay. As mentioned, MWSS is the regulatory body and the oversee both Maynilad and Manila Water. And on the neighboring region, which is Bulacan, there's also a Bulacan bulk water. Okay. The aim is ensuring that water qualities meet the demand of the Metro Manila residents while adapting the growing challenges posed by the climate change and the urbanization. Okay. Okay. The key strategies of the MWSS is to enhance infrastructure, improve operational efficiency, and to implement sustainable projects such as watershed protection and rainwater harvesting. Okay. Both Maynilad and Manila Water has different frameworks. Basically, it's the infrastructure improvement. This includes the upgrading of the aging pipelines. Before I left Maynilad, I was handling a 32-kilometer pipe replacement of 2.1 meter in diameter, spanning from Metro Manila up to the Cavite area. Okay, and then we need to also to have there's a framework, resiliency frameworks on the disaster risk management. Okay, this is in preparation for the effects of the typhoon, floods, droughts, by establishing contingency plans. Also, we have the community engagement. These are educating residents on water conservations, also wastewater management, especially on the informal settlers. Okay, like in any countries in Asia, there are so many informal settlers that were being taken into consideration by the government, which is also main focus here in the Philippines, especially in Metro Manila, as what the previous speaker mentioned, that this is one of the effects of the urbanization. Okay. Also, there are smart technologies being implemented. These are the real-time water quality and usage of monitoring system. Okay. Same thing before I left Maynilad, I just recently completed the upgrading and the rehabilitation of the 2 treatment facility, which was also presented in the 46 ECM and the 47 ECM. Okay. Also, we have sustainability programs. These are programs that needs to develop and expand water treatment facilities, as mentioned earlier, to focus on the sustainability and long-term resources management. And as what the previous speaker mentioned, there should always be a partnership with the local government units. Okay, being in the water utility or water sector, working alongside with the LGU is a vital ingredients, and basically it's one of the major component. Being in the water utility, there should be a partnership with the local government, because most of the permits, as what as what Engineer Jan or the first speaker mentioned, there should always be a partnership with the process, with the standards that is aligned with respect to the water implementation and to the local government codes and ordinances. Okay. There are so many capacity building initiatives. Basically, it's focused on the community-based programs. We recognize the importance of engaging local communities in water resilient efforts. That includes the informal settlers. We conducted outreach to teach, as mentioned earlier, to teach the basic water management, and such as fixing the leaks, locating the leaks, and reducing waste, or technically how to conserve water. And second is, we conducted trainings and knowledge sharings. These are workshops for the local leaders and disaster response team. Okay, this initiative is aimed to increase the local community's resiliency and response to the water scarcity. Simple training of how they're going to detect the leaks in their respective house is one of the key initiatives already established within the community, by determining simply putting a simple dye solution in their water closet, or in their in the typical canal within their house, determines if the water continuously flows with it flashes out the color. Basically, it determines that there's a leak within their pipelines. So eliminating that one will also eliminate the cost of high paying in their common utility bills. Okay. The next is collaborative partners. There are efforts between the MWSS, Maynilad, Manila Waters, and international organizations such as United Nations Development Programs, and partners with NGO, non-governmental organizations, had been critical expanding to the reach of water resiliencies programs to unprivileged communities. So typically, we have some outreach program together with the international communities, international organization within the informal settlers communities. Overall, the building capacity initiatives focuses on 3 main things. Basically, we need to provide provision for the technical trainings for the local governments. We promote awareness on the water-related risks, such as leaks, typhoons, and floods. And then we strengthen the community infrastructure to enhance resiliency. Okay. There are so many deep data-driven approaches and technologies that were implemented, okay, or that were already implemented. Okay. See, we uses the predicative analysis. Okay. The predicative analysis is basically utilizing data analytics from to forecast the water demands. Okay. And same thing we need to address in with respect to the demands in the population growth. So we are determining the possible size of the pipes that we're going to lay based on the population that we're going to utilize that kind of pipe. Okay. Same thing, we need to adapt. There should be a climate change adaptation. From the data given, sorted out from the models, data modelings that we had, we can assess the impact of the climate change based on the water availability. Say, like in ECM 46, we discussed technically on the water scarcity. My colleague Patrick Dison discussed the effect of the climate change in the water sources within the Metro Manila based on the data and the models that we gathered. And same thing, we have utilizes already smart water management system. So what are the smart water management system? So in my recently completed project, we already installed SCADA. SCADA is the supervisory control and data acquisition system. Basically, this system is some sort of like a monitoring coming from the plant going to the control house or control center that monitors the level of water, the turbidity, and the quality of water that were produced during the production stage. And same thing, the IoT or the Internet of Things. So basically, these are the use of the AI and use of the new technologies that were available right now. So these are the pictures of basically the recently concluded projects. We utilizes the predicative analysis. These are the plant utilizes new SCADA, and we are improving the treatment plant itself in utilizing and addressing the climate change. However, in any cases, there are still challenges and gaps. As mentioned earlier, the urbanization and the demand growth is a little bit one of the major challenges that we are facing right now. What are these? These are the basically rapid phase of the urbanization increase in the water demand. As we all know, if the demand is high, the supply is a little bit low. That's why we are trying to source for different sources of water. And then we need to ensure that equitable access to water remains a challenge. Okay. Basically, the pictures speaks for itself. And same thing, as mentioned earlier, there are most of the infrastructures in Metro Manila are outdated. That's why we are rehabilitating it. The main cause or the main effect of the aging infrastructures are basically leading to a water losses, leakage, and efficiencies. So as you can see, that picture is the La Mesa Dam, which was already been upgraded. This is what we've done before the upgrading. So as you can see, the infrastructures are a little bit older because the facility itself was constructed in early 1980s. Okay, and same thing, there should also be a community engagement. Typically, in one of the major issues and challenges that we had are the illegal connections. what are illegal connections? These are connections that were routed or tapped to a main pipeline that has no water meter. Okay. And then some of them are lack of formal infrastructures, low level community awareness. So typically, that's the main cause of the water, say water leakage or water loss, or what we call the NRW, are the leaks. As you can see in the pictures, there are when our workers, or when our personnel dig a hole on that one, there are so many interconnection within the main line. So basically, that's an illegal connection. Okay. As same thing, there are similar case studies and best practices that were made both by Maynilad and Manila Water. Okay. For Maynilad, basically it's more on the watershed project. Uh, the upgrading or the rehabilitation within the watershed of La Mesa, which is the one of the main source, has been successfully helped to conserve water sources while engaging local communities and reforestation efforts. As I do remember when I was still in elementary way back 1980s or early 1990s. My teacher always told me that in order to preserve the water, there should always be a tree planting. So that's why in every community extension project, tree planting is always on top of the list. Basically to improve the water resiliency and to conserve the water sources. And same thing, our counterpart, Manila Water, has initiated the rainwater harvesting program. This initiative is to install rainwater harvesting system, basically to store water, not really on to consume, to have it potable, but to use that one in the washroom and to store that one in the cistern. However, there are also programs from MWSS that from the rainwater harvesting, they incorporated or they provided, they mandated both Maynilad and Manila Water to construct a rainwater harvesting and to have a separate potable treatment facility so that in times that there's water scarcity or there should be a water augmentation on that one. Okay. So there are future projections and goals for these projects. Basically, the water supply security by 2030. Say both Maynilad and Manila Water have aimed to reach the water supply coverage by 2025, which is this year. So including the provision of the uninterrupted 24/7 water supply. And same thing, the construction of the Kaliwa Dam, which will help in the additional 600 million liters per day by water supply in Metro Manila for 2028. And on top of it, there is also small or medium range projects that were being implemented, like the augmentation projects carried out by Maynilad and Manila Water, which includes the rehabilitation of the deep well or the underground water, as I presented that one in ECM 46 in Manila. Okay, and same thing, sustainability goals. So we are still aiming by 2030 to meet the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals number 6, to improve the wastewater treatment facility and reducing the water waste by 2030, or much better on the earlier. So there are so many plans that plans and programs that were being implemented and conceptualized right now. And same thing, the futures are basically need to be implemented with some 4 policy recommendations as part of the TC26 goal. we need to expand the smart technologies. This is to use to enhance the use of the Internet of Things sensors and data analytics to monitor water distribution. And we need to strengthen the community engagement. We need to scale up the community-based programs in informal settlement and rural areas to ensure the equitable access of clean water and to properly teach them how to properly use the available water. And basically to increase the investment in climate resiliency projects. We need to accelerate the investment for the adaptation strategies such as water recycling, rainwater harvesting, diversified water sourcing, and to ensure long-term water security. Members of the ACECC already been toured to one of our major plans. We develop plans which utilizes we call it the water reuse, new water, because the water, the effluent, the source of water is coming from the wastewater. So on the 46 ECM, we had the plant tour on that one. So majority of the participants in that 46 ECM actually toured, and some of them drink the water from the new water treatment facility. And same thing, as mentioned, we need to upgrade the infrastructures by prioritizing the replacement of the aging infrastructures, especially the high-risk areas, and to reduce the risks and improve water quality. As we all know, like what happened in Myanmar and in Thailand, there are we had you experienced the earthquake 2 weeks ago. Same thing, the major facilities in major infrastructure facilities, especially in Maynilad and Manila Water, are upgrading their facilities to increase and to check on the resiliency to measure to counter, or say we cannot really avoid the earthquake, but there should be a retrofitting and infrastructures work that were being carried out. Okay, I think this is my last slide. In conclusion, basically water resiliency in Metro Manila is involved combination of infrastructures upgrade, community engagement, and technically using of the technologies right now. Both the concession areas, Maynilad and Manila Water, under the supervision of the MWSS, are implementing effective strategies to enhance water security. Well, despite of facing challenges, similarly, I myself as a project managers, there are no projects. You cannot really complete a project without the problems and challenges. Okay. In implementing a water projects and managing water infrastructures, there are so many challenges like the rapid urbanization, the climate change, and the aging infrastructures as mentioned. But there are also countermeasures that we can really improve and we can really implement by proper legislative and proper documentation with respect to the water infrastructures. I think that, as I mentioned, that's my slide. Again, I'm Engineer Robin Salenga. I thank April and Cris for the opportunity to share this even though it's short a presentation. I hope the participants already have a knowledge on how are we in Metro Manila addressing the water scarcity in terms of capacity building. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. That was very interesting. And thank you also for helping us determine the topic for this session as well. So
Thank you.
Thank you. So we only have 20 minutes left in our session. So Dr. Yadav, we're hoping that you can keep your presentation to 10, 12 minutes or so, because maybe we can go maybe 5 or 10 minutes over. Yeah, we'd appreciate that if you can keep the time down a little bit. Do we have Dr. Yadav? There he is, yeah. There we go.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us.
Respected Dr. Uday P. Singh, Secretary General, Asian Civil Engineering Coordinating Council, Session Chairman, Ms. April Lander, Dr. Cris, distinguished panelists, participants, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I must express my gratitude for giving me the opportunity to make my presentation on this August occasion. Many distinguished panelists have already spoken, and they have dealt with several issues, challenges regarding the sustainability, infrastructure, water crisis, etc. I will talk on challenges in water resources and infrastructure, the Indian perspective. I am Professor and Dr. H.R.P. Yadav, currently Professor of Civil Environmental Engineering at Amity University, Gurugram, India. Earlier, I was Secretary and Director General, the Institution of Engineers India, the largest professional bodies in India, and also having 0.8 million membership strength in Asia. So in my talk, I would like to share some of the information regarding challenges for the water resources and its ongoing infrastructure. We all are aware that water is an essential component for survival of the mankind. In India, there is great scarcity of the water resources since the population of the country is increasing day by day and urbanization is also increasing. So these all are serious challenges being faced by the country regarding water resources. These challenges range from water scarcity, pollution, inefficient systems, inadequate urban water supply to the impact of climate change. So there is a need to address all these for achieving sustainable development and economic growth of the country. Major challenges in water resources and infrastructure include being India's population 18% of the world but has only 4% fresh water resources. The per capita average availability is also very low, that is around very few cubic meter per annum as per the statistics of 2022. The resources is decreasing continuously due to continuous increase of population and urbanization. Due to climate change, there is large spatial and temporal variations, and that's why India is facing tremendous challenges in the water resources. There is also lack of India's water infrastructure like large storage, reservoir, canals, etc. to evenly distribute water resources, increase hydrological uncertainty under climate change scenario, posing financial, social, and environmental implications. I will like to include some key challenges as uneven rainfall distribution, dependence on erratic monsoon, leading to the droughts and floods, over extraction of groundwater, which is giving depletion of groundwater resources due to pumping for agriculture and domestic use. Poor water management is also one of the salient parameters. Inefficient irrigation systems, leaky water supply networks, and inadequate water treatment in the sewage plant. Industrial pollution is also one of the root causes which pollutes the water in the aquifers, different sources like rivers, ponds, lakes. Interstate water disputes is the major challenge. There has been a long dispute between the state regarding the sharing of river waters. Let us have a glance at this pictorial diagram. At the center, there is a population growth and urbanization, which poses several crises regarding the water resources like groundwater depletion, water pollution, inadequate infrastructure, and there is also too much water demand due to the huge population of the country, poor water use efficiency, lack of integrated planning, and interstate water disputes. These all are the major challenges in the field of water resources. This diagram indicates that due to the adverse effect of climate change, there is abrupt rainfall patterns, extreme weather events, impact on agriculture, water quality use issues like water pollution, melting of glaciers, rising temperature, and somehow policy governance also. These all poses serious challenges on the water resources and its depletion, and there is a threat of water security in the country. Let us have some statistics of the various states of India where there is total water availability in the billion cubic meter and per capita water availability in the cubic meters. Some of the states having less BCM, but per capita water availability is more due to their population. So this also indicates that there is a need of conservation of water resources. There is a need of modern infrastructure to keep the water intact so that the population of the country in various states can achieve the sustainable water for their purposes. This also gives the various aspects and their impacts. For example, total water availability receives an annual precipitation of about 4,000 billion cubic meter. Surface water resources, it comes from the Ganges, Brahmaputra, Mahanand, and other contribute significantly. These are the main rivers, important rivers of India. Groundwater resources, more than 60% consumed in agriculture and around 80% in rural water. So by understanding these, there is certainly a challenges regarding the water resources in terms of population, urbanization, and economic growth. I would like to include some key statistics regarding this. Only 4% of the world's fresh water are available to India. 600 million people in India face extreme shortage of water. Only 1,100 cubic meter per person water is available in India. Groundwater is a major source of water for irrigation, which is consumed 60% and 85% for drinking water. Rural areas, people face a tremendous scarcity of safe water for drinking purposes. What are the government initiatives and solutions to address such challenges? Government of India have framed several missions known as Jal Jeevan Mission, and this mission aims to provide tap water to every rural habitats by the current year. Atal Mission, in the name of the former late Prime Minister of India, late Atal Bihari Vajpayee, for rejuvenation and urban transformation. It focuses on improving urban water supply and sewerage networks. Another mission, Namami Gange program, according to that, the rejuvenation of the river Ganga. Micro irrigation scheme has also been launched, which encourages farmers to adopt efficiency of the irrigation methods like drip and sprinkler irrigation. Water recycling and rainwater harvesting, just Mr. Robinson elaborated. This promotes wastewater treatment, rainwater conservation for sustainable water management. I would like to just throw some recommendations so that the water resources can be managed, can be preserved, and can be conserved. First, there is a need of efficient water use. Under this, water efficient farming methods to be adopted, deep irrigation, crop selection based on area water availability is of paramount importance. Infrastructure development needs to be carried out. For that, there is a need of investment in water infrastructure such as availability of the storage tanks, pipelines, treatment plants. These are the basic infrastructure for preservation of the water. Next is community participation. If we believe in community participation or adopt the practice of community participation, certainly the minimal use of water resources will be carried out. So that is also important. We must encourage community participation. The role of technology integration is also very much important. According to this, modern technologies need to be integrated, such as sensors, data analytics, remote sensing, to improve water monitoring management. Of course, policy reforms is very important. Without this, no strategy can be applicable and can be implemented. So there is a need of reform water conservation programs, including control and agriculture, etc. Certainly, there is a need of education and awareness which promote water conservation campaign through education and training programs. Empowered river basin organizations by the central government should also be implemented so that the central government on water resources of international river basins due to their significance can be achieved. This is very important nowadays. There is a big problem amongst the international river basins due to their regional issues. There is also a need of public-private participation so that the water resources can be managed properly by the private organization, and they should foster their entire energy and efficiency to keep the water intact and accessible to each and every people of the country. With this, I would like to conclude and finish my talk within the time frame that India's water resource challenges require a multifaceted approach, government policies, technological advancement, and community participation. This is very important. Sustainable water management, pollution control, and investment in infrastructure are essential to securing India's water future. If these challenges are not addressed promptly, they could pose a significant threat to the country's socio-economic stability. With this, I conclude. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. I hope I have finished well within time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yadav. That was an excellent presentation, and thank you for keeping to the time as well. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'd like to introduce our final speaker, Dr. Professor Nini Thein, and please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about yourself as well. And thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. Thanks.
Because I'm short, I have to grab the mic from April. First of all, I would like to thank our President of Federation of Myanmar Engineering Society for giving me this opportunity to share our unique capacity building. And I also want to thank Secretary General, Dr. Sai, and Miss April Lander, and Dr. Cris for giving me this opportunity. I am actually telling the story of our unique capacity building in Myanmar from 2012 to date, actually. So it will be a long story, but because of the time, to respect the time, I will make step by step, but only the gist. So before going through, I would like to offer you, you can all email me for clarification, more questions, and more information anytime, okay? Because I am going to rush. So the content is, as you see on the slide, collective conscience of Myanmar water professionals. It's actually starting from our president. He is and was one of 37 So the collective 37, we made it. 11 to 16 highlights water sector reform. And you see the previous speakers talk about policy, infrastructure need, everything and anything we need for the water secure country or water secure world. But for us, we need a reform. We really need a brave leader, and we had it once upon a time. The second part is 16 to 20, and the third is how do we cope the holy crisis. So the collective conscience, actually, if we travel to the past, we have a lot of help from international governments. The first one indicated international community bilateral cooperation. If we count, it's about 50 plus governments like Netherlands, United States, India, Japan, and you name it, Australia, and GWP, Global Water Partnership. It is a network, global network, with its all the members, and NABU, the Network of Asian River Basin Organizations for the Asian-wide 63 countries. Currently, I'm the vice chair of NABU. And INBO is International Network of River Basin Organizations. And JICA, the Japanese, the Development Aid Arm. And ICMOD is for Himalayan countries. And IMI, the International Water Resources Institute with CGIAR, the greatest network of the water research. And many more. It cannot be covered in one slide. What did they do? They help Ayawadi, Selwyn, Sit Down, Bago, Mu. So it is about the rivers, then the rural area, then the cities and urban, issue-wise, theme-wise, wash, and remote areas. Plus, because I couldn't put in one slide. Then the question comes to all the Myanmar water professionals. What do we see? And what do we expect to see? And that expectation and the actual happening with all these numbers of donors and supporters are having a big gap. For example, we want 1,000, but on ground, we see 500. Despite the fact that we have all this support. So the lessons learned, we need for solidarity. We all have to work together. We need the integrity and we need the integration. Only then we can have the collective effort. So here we go, but we need the good leader. Okay? So in 2011, we got the first ever democratizing government. The government promised we are going to democratize. Thank you for your presentation. It was music to my ears. And then sorry, I have to go back. So we were able to do the advisory group and we were at the first meeting, we were 12. Then it grew to 37, from 11 to 13. But it is purely professionals. No one asked us to do what to do. And we have that kind of urge that we have to do something for our country. Then in 2013, the government say, okay, we will form the committee, Myanmar National Water Resources Committee. Then, of course, they officialize the advisory group, that 37 of them. Then we have started very energetic work, water awareness raising nationwide. The first ever World Water Day celebration was held in February, 2014 in MES Function Hall. So you see, Federation of MES, Myanmar Engineering Societies, is also the professional association, and it is independent one. It is non-governmental and non-political. And all these ECs, they come from the voting, fair and square voting. So this is how we started. And of course, the government picked up. So we have made the policy draft, and then we published in February 2014, and the government recognized in August 2015. It's all over the media. And World Bank supported ABM project, Ayeyarwady Integrated River Basin Management Project, with 100 million United States as concessional loan, which means no interest. So the Ayeyarwady Integrated River Basin Management, ABM project, is a multi-phased initiative funded by the World Bank, aims to strengthen integrated climate resilient management and development of the Ayeyarwady River Basin and national water resources in Myanmar. So we have this, and this is the committee, National Water Resources Committee, and it has a mandate as apex body of the Myanmar national government and also the water sector. So for the theme-wise, we do integrated water resources management, we do the disaster risk reduction, we also do the WASH, and with the WASH, we also supported water is a human right. For the technicality, we have this hydroinformatics as the basic advanced technology and social science and natural science together. Then gender, diversity and inclusion. And then, if I may recall, the first time I introduced what do we need, what do we get, and what do we aim for? And this is it. This is so very important, the team building. So we have divided that 100 million to component 1, component 2, and component 3. I was asked to lead the component 1 because it is the water sector reform, because it was also my dream together with our advisory group members, 37's dream, collective dream. So we did it, and of course, we use the advanced technologies like LiDAR, drone, GIS, remote sensing, and lately, artificial intelligence. So again, for the climate, Asia is very vulnerable, and Southeast Asia is also more vulnerable than the rest of the Asia. At that time, Myanmar is the second most vulnerable in Southeast Asia. Therefore, we use the GIS applications in climate science. So this is actually also mentioning the sources. And also, we try to make the capacity building for these target groups, 1 to 7. That is why my presentation title is a unique capacity development. So when you recall, 50 plus governments bilaterally helping us. To Netherlands, we were going for scholarship, full scholarship for postgraduate degrees in water. It is like 80 per year. But after 1988, the help stopped. So that kind of, up and downs However, we have quite fine professionals, very fine professionals. But what we need to do is we have to bring the top tip top. I'm saying tip top, okay? Layer government. And then the cabinet, of course. Some ministers are juniors, only the seniors are in the cabinet. We need to target the cabinet. And then the parliamentarians in Myanmar, we have two parliaments. And for the one is the lower parliament and the other is the upper parliament. So four is water-related ministries. And not only the ministers, we need to also capacitate their staff and their laborers, even the blue-collared, and universities, teachers and students, and schools, basic education, teachers and students, and the grassroots, wet markets and libraries, the community libraries. And we actually did all these things, and these are the some example of the proof. And how do we discuss in this kind of capacity building? We talk about the input, we talk of the project or of the activity, the input, then the output, then the outcome, then the impact. So you see, we are doing very systematically. We know if we have some input, we get something. I will not go for the small details, but what I was saying is our community is aware of each and every activity should give output, and then further to the future, there is an outcome. And then for the wider community, there is an impact. So we did that, and also we have that group work, and down to earth, we have this kind of little water storage tank. With this is the waterproof cloth, and it is for the displaced, internally displaced people, and also people who has to move from A to B. The second part, you know why second part? The first part was governed by one government, and now is we have the 5-year term government. So now we are going to the second term, second government. At that time, we just carry on with here I just put in Myanmar, but I will speak in English. On 25th of July 2013, the National Water Resources Committee was formed by the presidential decree. So what happened is when first president relinquished his power and the position, the incoming president need the clean slate to do his own job with his own tools. And the tools are sometimes called committee, sometimes called commission. So NWRC is one of this kind. Therefore, it was dismantled, decommissioned on 30th of March 2016. So in between, we were having the gap from from 31st of March to June the 20th. But it is okay with gap, because I want to recall one very important memory. Actually, we were arranging the meeting on July the 25th, 2016, with the UN Secretary General Office, UNDESA, in New York. So when they see our committee was decommissioned, and the one with the incoming president is yet to establish, yet to have the stamp, what to do? the UN Secretary General Office asked me, should we postpone or cancel? And I will say, no, go ahead with that. Because the incoming government, although the red tape caused the delay in stamping, they understand the need. So I am sure they will stamp the establishment. And it did on 20th of June. However, the UN supported the roundtable discussion in Air Lake Hotel, one of these kinds, was okay on 25th of July between the power vacuum, actually. So this point, I really want to mention that when the professionals are united and they have the good communication with the government, whatever government it is, the communication, understanding, and the common goal, why are we working for? We work for the people. If the government work for the people, and if these goals are coincided, we can do a lot. Therefore, this is the just one pager of the meaning of the ABM project, 100 million US dollar interest-free loan. So the first thing we tackle is climate change. That's why we talk about the trend of the rainfall data, trend of the runoff data, and then we do the SOBA. It is the assessment of the whole river basin of Irrawaddy. Then we can say we do all these three things, and institutional arrangement and legalization and the water sector reform. We also, in the same time, no regret projects like in Yangon and in Irrawaddy. And also we try to maintain Irrawaddy as free-flowing, but we advertise for the need for hydropower development. So the relevance to this seminar with the capacity building and the need for hydraulic infrastructures, but doing sustainable way, that is already in place even 2013, 14. Then we also say system scale planning is necessary. We should not do the isolated projects here and there and there. No, we need the planning. And most importantly, we need peace, because peace brings stability, and stability opens the door for the development and donors. Okay, therefore, our project, we believe, is to bring the fairness on water resources management. And that will yield the trust, because the trust is more valuable than the US dollars or Myanmar kyat or Indian rupees. So we bring the trust, then the peace is only the destination. We cannot even divert, because if you have the fairness and trust, the peace is always there. But we try to remind ourselves, peace is not lack of fight, nor lack of struggle. Instead, peace is a process, a process. So every day, if we are forging the peace, we are doing well. Then what is the lesson we learned from all these 10 years with two different governments? We have this table, and this is subtract from World Bank report, which is publicly available on their website, and this is the link, okay? So we know that we need this, dwelling in the past glory. Myanmar always say how rich we were in 1950s. Forget it. and the experience vs innovation. There is a fight between, oh, the gray hair like myself. And I said, actually, I have 47 years of experience since I worked in 1977 December. Okay? However, I cannot compete with the innovators like the young people here because what they know is more efficient than what I know. And we really have to combine and admit. Another is past vs present. The past thing and the present thing, we always compare. Past and the future, we always compare. But what is lacking is we do not live in the present moment reality. If we don't have any money, we should be able to do the normal filter, the water purification filter, and not aiming that it cannot make purification of the arsenic. Arsenic water we will treat separately, but for the normal lake and river water, we can go with the basic. So that kind of thing we need. And also we always know what to do. And we always know who will do, except me. And that is the problem, okay? So we also miss how. And that how is also, we were thinking that it comes from the professor, the greatest from somewhere, or maybe from the chief of the dainties. No, actually the how is not only the technical know-how, it is the local context. I'm very grateful to Dr. Cris. He put it in the very first presentation. He talked about the importance of local context. And that is technology and the soft skill. It is so important. And priority settings mismatch. If I may go back to this one, you see here, I'm not sure you can read or not, but who, why, and their interest and your interest. So as a professional, I am interested in ABCD, but the community or the women of the village, their interest is something else. Their interest is clean and enough water. But when we are thinking about public awareness for the policy making, you see, that is already something we should think and do for this lessons learned. And huge mismatch between supply and demand. Either supply from Federation of MES to the villages or to the wet market, or ASCE to Myanmar or to Nepal. So demand is always thinking like a demand, and supply side is thinking like a supply side. So if we can close this gap, that will be very good. But you see, except from the last point, everything above is actually made by our own thinking. Therefore, human factors. And human is made up of the body and the mind. And now all the problems starting from the mind, the psychology. So therefore, at this very moment, I am working on the last part because I try to change myself and seeing all these lessons. What do we do? Okay, is it only capacity building and teaching them how to build the bridge, or building the bridge together and learn from the project? So I chose to be the second way. Therefore, I was afraid of the time. Therefore, I put this slide because if I can stop here and then I have to omit the rest, it's still possible. So the concept note we were doing, actually, let me go to here. We were doing the consortium, and it is Federation of Myanmar Engineering Society and Myanmar Green Building Society, and my organization, Myanmar Water Academy. We forged the consortium, you see, the consortium for this kind of project and the learning at the same time. So we have done 21 seminars so far because our project will finish by 8th of May. Then 3 more roundtable, and then the closing on 8th of May. So this is our activity from May 2024 to May 2025, the consortium's activity. From that, what do we get out of? Up until now, we got 2 projects. The number 1 is revisiting the national water policy. 3 projects. The second is safe drinking water for all, the neti filter production and dissemination in partnership with AHD Pakistan. It is Association of Humanitarian Development. The last one is revitalization of the Ploga watershed. Ploga is the reservoir, partly that supply the drinking water to Yangon City, and now the watershed is quite weak, and we need to revitalize, just like Singapore is doing, to get the rainfall back. So these are the 3 things we get as the output of our seminar, and continue the capacity development work of our consortium. And also we add AI, because according to the survey, 83% believe AI will elevate uniquely human skills and enhance human creativity. So these are the, our, trying to convince the public and the audience, water for peace, water and peace, water is peace, whatever we can change the word, but we want to go to peace process through the water projects. So in 2023, we were doing the joint youth program. At that time, only 2 organizations, Myanmar Water Academy and MGBS. After that 3-month internship, we were able to ask the Fed MES to form the consortium. And you can visit the websites. And then, I think this is the last slide I would talk upon. For centuries, common aspirations for mutual respect, peace, and understanding were reflected in traditional concepts across cultures and civilizations. Wherever we go, Indus civilization, then the Rhine, and the Nile, and the Yangtze, and Ayeyarwady, we have it. Therefore, we believe that I am because of who we are. So that is the African philosophy called Ubuntu. So meaning, I am nothing without all of us. So that is very fundamental, and UNESCO is actually making this again widely known across the globe. So this is their publication. And also recently, on March 2025, Slovenian president is she, the lady, Her Excellency, Natasha Pigmusa. She said, only girls with dreams can become women with vision. မြန်မာစကားပုံရှိပါတယ် ယောက်ျားကိုစေတော်မခံနိုင်တဲ့မိန်းမကိုစေတော် oh sorry ယောက်ျားကိုစေတော်မပြီးနိုင်တဲ့မိန်းမကိုစေတော်မခံနိုင်တဲ့ဒါဟို gender ဟိုဥစားလို့တာမဟုတ်ပါဘူး provocation မဟုတ်ပါဘူးတကယ်အမျိုးသမီးတွေရဲ့စွမ်းအားသည်အများကြီးရှိတယ်ဆိုတာပြောတာပါအဲ့တော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ဘာတွေလုပ်နေလဲဆိုတော့ AEIOU leadership ကို promote လုပ်ပါတယ်အဲ့ဒါက 5P's ဖြစ်ပါတယ်ဆိုတော့ presentation မှာ PPP ဆိုတာပြောသွားတယ်လေ public private partnership now we add the peace and also planet ဒါကြောင့်မလို့ကျွန်တော်တို့ရဲ့ 5P ဟာ people planet prosperity partnership and peace ဖြစ်ပါတယ်လို့เนาะအဲ့တော့တခါ AEIOU leadership the last one Ubuntu reminds us that leadership is about connection, about trust, and about shared humanity. So we can do excellent work if we have the culture of peace. So that is why we also promote Myanmar culture for peace since 2000. And these are the impacts and the communities. And this is the thanking note from the consortium. And these are our like-minded organizations. So I hope that this will also give the positive note like we have no time to hate. We really have no time to hate. And another thing is, yesterday was gone, but you have today. And this one is also challenging our negative thoughts, seemingly impossible before completion. So for me, making the water project to start the peace process in different way is possible. But it will be in the eyes of negative lookers, maybe seemingly impossible, but it's always is. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation. I'd like to thank all of our speakers online and in person, and all of our guests here today, our audience, and our host FedMess, of course, Secretary General, and our ACECC leaders who are here today. So thank you very much. And unfortunately, we don't have time for a question and answer session, but we did have a lot of great information today. So thank you.